this is one I'm going to feel bad about. Galaxian is a game that's a key part of history. It's Namco's first game on the system, and I am going to have almost nothing to say about it. Galaxian's claim to fame was that it was the first color arcade game. It was released in 1979, so it was 5 years old when it came to the Famicom. I'm going to ask you a question. How many Galaxian machines have you seen in the wild? Personally, in a lifetime of going to arcades, I've never seen one, but I expect that some of you have seen one or two. Now, how many Galaga machines have you seen? For me, it's too many to count. That was a ubiquitous machine, even in the early 80s. The thing is, Galaxian was barely one step above Space Invaders. And then Namco released Galaga 2 years later, and it was a sequel that improved every single thing about it. There's no reason to play Galaxian when Galaga exists. And that kind of goes for the Famicom port too. As a first effort from Namco, it's very solid. It's enjoyable, you'll like playing it. But then, with their second release, Namco figured out how to move their arcade games into a home. The revised version was such a step up that there was no reason to go back and look at the original. You could play Famicom Galaxian, but less than 6 months later they released Galaga for the Famicom, and it's much better. Galaxian just winds up being totally overshadowed, stuck between Space Invaders, which it imitated, and Galaga that perfected it. I do appreciate how this game presents its plot in the attract screen. Mission: destroy aliens. We are the Galaxians. And that's really all you need to know. When you start the game, you're presented with a field of bug aliens who dance back and forth left to right, just like Space Invaders, though they don't descend when they reach the edge of the screen. Sometimes an alien will break off from the pack to descend, firing its shots as it swerves at your ship. The player is piloting the Galaxy A spacecraft that can only have one bullet on the screen at a time, and you can tell that you're ready to fire again when it appears at the nose of your ship. The most important aliens from a scoring perspective are those multicolored ones at the back. They'll descend with an escort, and the score that you get for them is determined by how many of the escorts you take out first. Also, hitting that ship pauses the alien attack for 4 seconds. The manual actually gives personalities to all of the aliens, although I don't see it reflected in the game. The green aliens are the combat team, weak minions who have to overcome you with sheer numbers. The purple ones are the sergeants. They're ferocious and vigilant. The red aliens are the escorts, always acting with the captains, despite their inferior attack. And the yellow ones are the captains of the fleet. Key members, and if you destroy them, you weaken the enemy's attack. Personally, I don't see any of that reflected in the game, but I respect the manual author's attempt to give them some personality. Your reward for clearing out a fleet of aliens is to have them appear again and start all over. They'll be a little bit faster and shoot a little bit more, and that's literally everything there is to Galaxian. Galaxian was Namco's first Famicom game, and they gave it a number on the cart. Namco didn't number all of their releases, though. They were the most prolific publisher for the system, with 84 games released. You might notice that the game's publisher is given as Namcot, and that's molded onto the cartridge as well. That's just the name for Namco's home gaming division, and they'll continue to use Namcot into the 90s. Nobody at Namco knows what the T stands for, and a lot of people have attempted to find out over the years, including myself. Galaxian gives us another first. Unlike Hudson, Namco didn't feel beholden to Nintendo's style of packaging, and so their boxes actually have screenshots of the game on them. Their cartridges also don't have cart codes on them. They're one of only 2 publishers who got away with that. Strangely enough, this did get a re-release. In 1990, it was released to the Famicom Disk System as a disk writer only release. It's one of the last releases for the FDS, and as such, it's pretty rare. Famicom Galaxian is a fine port. It's definitely better than any of the other home ports that were made back then. Namco did switch the game a bit to get it onto home television screens, but it doesn't compromise the game too badly. The real thing that hurts it is that we're only 13 Famicom releases away from a game that improves on it in every way.